It's been exactly 6 months since we moved into our newly built house here in Sweden, and one of the things that we were kind of quick to do was to install solar panels on our roof. But the question is though, since we're living in Sweden, has it actually been worth it so far? Solar panels, didn't expect that to be on the channel when I started 5 years ago, but hey, it's gonna be a fun time. If this is your first time here, I just want to say that thank you for tuning in. My name is Peter, live in Sweden, and I'm hoping that you're gonna have a good time. So before we moved into a house, we actually lived in an apartment that was a 2-room and 50 square meters. I have absolutely no idea what that is in feet, but I'm gonna put the calculation somewhere here so that you guys know the size, even though you're not using the metric system. And living in an apartment compared to a house is very different when you look at the different costs. The apartment doesn't have any sort of heating that you need to pay for because it's sort of like included into the entire building. But when you move to a house, you have your own source of heating and you pay for all the electricity that you use and so on and so forth. One of the things that we wanted to do pretty quickly when we moved into the house was making sure that we could cut the costs of the electricity bill as much as we possibly could. And during the winter, when I was building this garage on my own, I also looked up the possibilities to actually, at the same time as we sort of finalized our loan on the house, bake in the cost of solar panels there as well. So when the house was complete, we decided to go to the bank and talk to them and ask if we could actually increase the loan of the house with an additional $35,000 instead of the $400,000 that we had to begin with. And luckily enough, they were okay with that. So we decided to invest that money into a solar panel system on our roof with the battery included. And if you're watching this video, then you probably have an interest in solar panels or how they work or whatever solar panels there is on the market. But I can only speak for the ones that I have. And we didn't have that many to choose from, mainly because of our limited budget. But the hybrid inverter that we chose is from a brand that's called GoodWe. It's a Chinese company, which is basically all these hybrid inverters, unless you want to pay an insane amount of price that we could not afford. But same thing goes for the battery as well. And the battery is at 10 kilowatts. And it might not sound like a lot of power, but we're going to get to that point eventually so you understand what the battery actually does in this entire configuration. And on the roof, we have a total of 17 kilowatts of solar panels installed. Unfortunately, there weren't any possibility to install these panels until the beginning of July. But that is why I'm making this video, because I'm going to give you sort of like a quarterly report of July, August, and September and show you exactly how much it has produced. One of the main things that I was asking around when we wanted to purchase this system was, is it going to be possible to have an entirely off-grid system with the battery? And the answer is no, mainly because you need to have some sort of thing in the property thing where it sort of like cuts the power from the main grid whenever there's a main grid blackout. It's a very costly setup, but you can do it, but we couldn't afford it at the time. It's probably something that we're going to do in the future though. And I was a little bit bummed out about that because I really wanted our house to be self-sustainable when it comes to the electricity. But one of the benefits that I almost instantly saw when the entire thing was installed was how effective the battery was at shaving off the high costs hour per hour. Today, we have a little bit of overcast skies, and right now, the system is generating 4,277 watts, and our house is consuming 1,700. Meanwhile, the battery is being charged at 2,510 watts and is 49%. So if we want to go in and see how the battery flow actually works, then you can go in here and you can see the green line here and how the state of charge sort of like goes up slowly but steady during the day. And this also depends on how much energy we actually consume during the day when the battery is finished and how much the sun is shining. But usually towards the end of the day, the battery is mostly full. There's probably going to be a bunch of different electricity providers out there, depending on which country you live in. But here in Sweden, we have a supplier that's called Tibber, and they are the ones responsible of selling me the electricity that I use, not the actual grid owner, but they're also responsible of paying me for all the excessive amount of power that our solar panels produce. And one of the benefits with Tibber is that you're charged per hour. So say for example that you consume 10 kilowatts when the electricity is at 10 cents, then that is going to be 100 cents that you paid during that specific hour. But if the electricity price is down to 1 cent, and you consume 10 kilowatts, that's only going to be 10 cents that you pay. And the way that other electricity providers work is that they take the average throughout the entire month, and that is what you pay. And one of the biggest benefits with using Tibber has been to combine it with the solar panels. So now, for example, on a really sunny day where there's no wind, the electricity prices usually go up here in Sweden. And since the solar panels on our roof is 17 kilowatts, it has the possibility to actually power the house and everything that we do, including the charging of my car, but also provide electricity to the grid so that we can actually get money back from selling that electricity that is excessive. But the downside with having an hourly rate on your electricity is that it usually goes up early in the morning before everyone goes to work, and then during the evening when everyone gets home. But this is where the battery really shines through. Usually, the electricity price spikes somewhere around 1,800 hours to 2,100 hours. And even now in September, when the sun is going down at like 1,900 hours, our battery helps us sort of like shave off that spike. And we basically don't need to purchase any sort of electricity during the time where the prices are high, except of course during the mornings. So instead, during the night, when the 10 kilowatts of the battery has been depleted, it starts purchasing electricity from the grid again. And as soon as the sun comes up, the main priority of the hybrid inverter comes to prioritize the battery to charge that up as soon as it possibly can, but also prioritizes the house as soon as we start using, the coffee brewer, the stove, or whatever it might be. So as long as the sun is out, it's been freaking amazing to see how everything works together and so like provides the most efficient way of both consuming and providing electricity to the grid and to us. When it comes to GoodWe and their app, I gotta say that the app is pretty bad. I don't find it to be very intuitive. It's actually kind of boring to look at. There's this weird tilting of your phone, and it could be nice to have some sort of like moving, animations on the arrows to see where the flow of current is actually going instead of having static arrows, and that's just it. But it does give you an overview of how your system works and what it is that the system actually does. So as long as the sun is out, it works freaking great. But what about if there's clouds? Well, you can absolutely see a big drop in generated power as soon as there's clouds in front of the sun. And it all depends on what kind of clouds there are. If there's just a little bit cloudy but still bright outside, then it actually generates somewhere between 4 and 6 kilowatts an hour, which is nice. And then if you have one of those really dark days with a lot of rain and that kind of stuff, then there's basically no generation whatsoever. But then again, that's kind of what you expect because you need the sun to actually power the solar panels. That's sort of like the premise of the entire thing. And it's going to be very interesting to evaluate this further when we move into the winter, because the sun is sort of like fading away into darkness here in Sweden right now. It's like it's going down quicker and it's coming up way later during the mornings. The most interesting thing is not the actual electricity price and being able to shave that off. It's more so the electricity transfer tax and also the electric grid fee that we have to pay. So just looking at the month of July, we consumed a total of 272 kilowatt hours from the grid, which cost us a total of approximately $22. But again, this was the grid cost to be able to consume those 272 kilowatts. The actual electricity bill that we paid for the same amount of kilowatts was approximately $7, which means that we paid in total $29. So if you look at the price, the cost of electricity is not what is costing a lot of money, but the cost of actually transferring the electricity to your house from the grid owner, which is almost 3 times as expensive as the electricity was during the month of July. But we also generated 963 kilowatts that we actually consumed on our own, and then we fed in 1.3 megawatts into the grid during that month. So you can see here that 78% of the electricity that we consumed was from the solar panels alone, which is sick. Looking at the month of August, we had a total energy consumption from the grid at 377 kilowatts, which cost us approximately $5.5. But the grid cost was a total of $31, which is wild. So in total for the month of August, when it comes to the actual electricity consumed, we consumed 1,420 kilowatts in total, but 73% of those were actually from the solar panels and the battery, which meant that we only purchased 372 kilowatts in total. We paid $36. But on top of the actual electricity and grid cost that we pay, we also pay for the main fuse in our house, which is 25 amps. And that is a fixed fee of $55 per month, which is something that we can't avoid. So it doesn't matter if we would have solar panels or not. And that is sort of why I'm not calculating in that into the electricity cost. For the entire month of September, we consumed a total of 290 kilowatts from the grid. We consumed 1,420 kilowatts in total. That again, 70% of what we use is basically from solar panels. So during these 3 months, basically 70 to 75% of all the electricity that we consume comes from our roof. And being able to shave those spot prices off with the battery, combined with not having to actually purchase as many kilowatts from the grid, makes the electricity bill way smaller. And I just want to show you the difference, because in June we had a consumption of 1,200 kilowatts and it cost us in total $142. But moving on to July, you can see that it cost us a total of $77. So it's half the price than what we paid previously. So after these 3 months, I gotta say that I'm very impressed by how it all performs, but it didn't come cheap because it cost us a total of $22,000 after deductions and all that good stuff that you get here in Sweden right now to install them on the roof and have the electricians install everything and make it flow the way that it does now. I'm not entirely sure how long it's going to take us to actually be able to pay this loan off, but since we actually baked it into the loan of our house, the actual cost of that extra loan was actually barely noticeable. But I do think it's great to be able to charge my car with the power of solar energy, not having to pay an obscene amount of money every month for just transfer costs of the kilowatts that I use. And also being able to have this on our house right now when it's newly built means that it can stand there for 25 to 30 years and just generate power alone without me having to do anything, which is kind of sick. And that's my thoughts of solar panels so far. But I'm going to make an extra video in 6 months from now and update you on how it has been over the winter, because that is going to be one interesting video. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. There's like shoot the thumbs up, and hope you have a good one. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you in the next video.